What's going on, good people? Happy Friday, crypto enthusiasts, Liquidity Citadel, YouTube environment and world. I'm hoping you guys are having a phenomenal start to your Friday and a great end to your week, especially if you are short. Some of the shorts that we had mentioned were called earlier this week, all posted on the site where it is updated regularly for you. So a lot of those calls are there. If you missed out, I apologize that you did, but the info is there. All you got to do is do a little bit of research. Other than that, we're going to continue our challenge as normal and try to hit our goals for the day. So far this week, a little bit lower on the goal front. Nevertheless, we're still positive. We're not hitting our goals fully yet. So let's see what today brings us. We are going to be doing a giveaway later today. So stay tuned for that. I'll be giving you the details as far as what that looks like and how to enter, and essentially your opportunity to win. Other than that, I want to discuss ETH, a couple different other coins that I've been trading and taking positions on. And I'm going to be taking some requests from you guys, things that you want to look at, whether it be BTC, Hype, or Wild, or Humanity, or any one of these other coins that are out there. We'll be taking a look at that together too. But let's get started on ETH. Kind of just go right into the sessions where we are right now. We can see the 15-minute session high was 1548.12. The low was 1528.12. And essentially, you know, what we really want to see is we want to see a retest of this area, potentially a little bit lower inside of this opening range inside of here. Right now we're testing Asia high, and we can see that we're getting some rejection inside that area. We do have yesterday's New York high, you know, that sat right around 1637. This is untapped territory as of right now. And we still have that London high that sits right over here inside of this area, which is like 1677. But I think the New York high is going to be the first primary target of what we should be looking for. My bias is, is bullish. It is. Are there opportunities for shorts that could come? Yes, but I don't think the risk to reward is beneficial to have that type of exposure. I'd much rather just wait for the long to come to my entry levels. Some of these entries that you're going to see me going over and discussing, they've been developing for the last 2-3 days now. A lot of this is posted inside of the VIP war room. So if you're not privy to it, I'll try to dive a little bit more into it with you guys today. But in advance, right? In advance, all these setups were posted inside of the war room. So everyone that's in there had, you know, ample opportunity to say, okay, well, we're getting into a potential PRZ zone. You know, we have a potential wave 2. You know, what does this look like? What do we need to be prepared for? So all that is outlined and broken down inside of there. Got to get that tea in the morning though. Tea time, right? Tea time. Yeah, so I mean, really, we want to see, you know, if we're going to be bullish here, and there's a setup here. This is going to be part of the giveaway. I'll go over that here in a moment. Wait for a couple people to actually pop on in here so we can give them the fair opportunity of actually entering. But here's the thing, right? If we can hold this area right over here inside that zone, then it's a retest of the New York open high, right? If price decides to come down and stay inside of this range, then this is considered bullish retest. If price comes all the way down and breaks that low, that New York open low, comes back up and starts rejecting it, comes down again, then comes back inside this range, then it's flipping into a bearish retest. So you have several different scenarios. You know, scenario 1 over here is super bullish. Over here, this is just normal. That's textbook normalcy. And this scenario, if you will, this would show us that bears are still going to be in control here. We do have a good amount of liquidity to the downside, excuse me, to the upside. There's still some to the downside, right? We can get down to like 1498 inside that area. You can actually see it right over here on CoinGlass. You can actually pull it up inside of the server as well too, but I'm just going to make things a little bit easier for us. This is 30-day. Now we're looking at Binance, ETH, and what I'm looking at is saying, okay, well, I have 92 million in liquidations that sit here in this area. 11 million of them are 100x longers. Only 1.49 are 10xers. And then we have, what was that, 1513, right? And then we have roughly like 1499. Let's just round it down, round up to 1500. 155 million that sit inside that area. So, you know, if we come back to this zone, you've got a nice little pocket that sits right inside here. It would make sense for us to sweep this area. That's why I'm focusing on here on the New York sessions, because if we're going to sweep, you know, these are going to be the targets as far as what we're looking for. Now to the upside, we can see, obviously there's a lot more liquidity that's to the upside. You know, first level is going to be roughly around like 1583, which is right in that range of what we're testing right now. As a matter of fact, that's going to be the London high, and that was the yesterday's New York PM session high as well too. So that 1586, 1583 area, you know, there's a good amount of liquidity that sits right inside those zones. These are yesterday's shorts, about 191 million, 185, 156. So just on that little cluster in itself, in comparison to the downside, there's more in a short little push up to the upside. So there's more liquidity. That's really what I'm pointing at. But we can see that there's a nice little gap in between here, and there's smaller little gaps that are here, but I'm really focused on the bigger gaps. So from like 1580 all the way up to 1698, you know, there's a good little pocket. You know, we have 619 million, and then obviously a couple millions that sit in between. So we have several billion that sit inside this area as far as liquidations. So something to pay attention to, especially if you're shorting here in this area. That's one of the reasons why I was saying, I was like, risk to reward doesn't really look too favorable. Yes, there is liquidity here to the downside, right? But we're talking about smaller amounts in grand scheme of things as far as distance of where price action is right now. Price action is a little bit closer here inside of these areas. Well, I take that back. That's actually, we're kind of like split right in the middle where price action is currently at right now, 1557. Right, they're both essentially like about 100 pips away from each other. What's going on, chat? What's up, Sniper? What's up, Omar? What's up, Immortal? Good morning, good morning. And like I said, we're going to be coming back to this right over here. So for all my early birds that are here, you know, start focusing on this, because this is going to be tied to the giveaway. Now let's look at USDT real quick. USDT, you know, obviously pushed a little bit higher. You know, this is its high for the year thus so far, right over here inside this area as of 2026. If we go and take a step back, let's go over to weekly. Let's open this up from a weekly perspective. And let's open this up. You know, you can see that we're testing right inside of the 2022 highs, which subsequently, you know, 2022 highs were ETH's and essentially BTC's market low as far as bear market wise. Right, so we're retesting those areas, but as of right now, this is the yearly high for USDT. So we're getting into some of those territories where, you know, if we start breaking out of the 9.488 area, then we go into price discovery for USDT. We don't know how high it can go. And I have targets all the way up to 10.524, and that's just based on the math for it. I hope I'm wrong. I hope it stops here. It gives a little bit of a rally for ETH, but we still have July. Right? Like, I'm going to share something with you guys that I've shared with you on other streams before. This is one of the ideas that I was sharing a couple weeks ago, I believe it was. It was this month, essentially, where I'm getting at. But, you know, from a sequential count perspective, you know, we got an 8 right here. And on the lead up phase, we do have a 13. So that's positive in the sense of showing where a trend can be exhausted. But we still need July to be a confirmation month if June was the bottom. You know, in my analysis, and we're looking at bear markets typically last, at least from past data, we've had 3 major, this is our 3rd major bear market. The previous 2 lasted at bare minimum 365 days. Currently, we're at 304 days as far as from all-time high to where we are current lows. So July still leaves the door open for, you know, testing new lows, right? Just based on the schematics of time frame. And from a TD9 sequential perspective, we can still see that 9 impulse come down a lot lower, to be quite honest. You know, we have targets that can put us, and it's a scary number, but it can put us in the 1K and even lower levels. That's really, really going to be contingent on what July looks like. In a perfect world, you know, we want to see that July kind of maintains itself right over here. Let's change that to black. Want to see that July maintains itself inside of this region, maybe a smidge lower, you know, just for good measure, just to get that 1400 on the books, right? This keeps going to black. I need to change that. Smidge lower. But ultimately, you really want to hold these areas right over here. You know, those are the areas that you're really looking for to be held going into July. So we're far from out of the woods as of right now. I think current longs that we're looking at right now, you're going to be getting at best intraday. It's a Friday. You know, weekends have been weird this year. That's the best way of putting it, right? Because typically, you know, weekends, you know, we have lower volume, but we've seen bigger moves on Saturdays and Sundays. They just come out of nowhere. So for me, the way that I'm just running my analysis, I'm running my own personal challenges, saying, okay, well, Friday would be an intraday. I'd be scaling out of my positions by bell close. And then if anything comes to fruition on Saturday and Sunday, you know, I take that as a false move bleeding into next week. Next week, the month ends, I believe, on a Tuesday, and we have a new month open on Wednesday. So we're going to have a little bit of a chaotic week next week, especially with month closure and month opening. And with such a short period of time for the month open, we're really only going to get about 4 days of data. So I would anticipate a little bit of volatility. And then the next following week, I believe that's when we're really going to start to see those moves essentially start developing. 4th of July is on a Saturday, national holiday, banks are closed, things like that. So, you know, we may get the opposite. We may get something where, hey, it's 4th of July. Americans are out there blowing fireworks. Let's run the market. You may see that. You may see no movement at all. I don't know. But I do have a fib zone that's created for this. And so where we are currently now up until July 4th, I'm anticipating sideways movement. That's really what it boils down to. If we can get a pop into, you know, 1670s, 1680s inside those areas, and then hold a little bit higher than that, then that's great. That's great. But I wouldn't be holding my breath going, okay, we're done. We do have signs that are pointing towards towards reversal, and this is on lower time frame, but obviously the better data is on the higher time frame. We're just gauging this, looking at where the move occurs first. So 1503 could very well be that low for June. You want to see July have a higher low. If July gives us a higher low, then our wave count is going to be correct, that we have mapped out from a 377 through a 4 hour. And then that puts us, initial target is no matter what, initial target is going to be 1670. That's my initial target. Whether I get there now or I get there by next week, we'll see. Look at BTC a little bit later, buddy. Some additional setups that I was looking at. Some of you guys are privy to this. I've been focusing on Clo for the last, I don't know, week or so, week and a half. Clo came up on our scanner for a long opportunity, which I missed, but then turned around and I shorted it. And then once I started working it, I kind of got dialed into it, if that makes any sense, or probably better put, I got sucked into it. So Clo's been on my radar. It's been a fun coin to trade, just because the moves have been, you know, somewhat intense on both sides, shorts and longs. So I think it's a good tool to use in the event that you start seeing, you know, slow movement on BTC, or at least on the larger caps like BTC, ETH, Sol, things like that. And price is really not moving in the direction you're looking for. Some of these alts have been fun to play with, for lack of better terminology. STG, another one, not a project that I'm fully familiar with. It came up on our scanner. I had posted this inside VIP as well too. Go over to a 4 hour real quick. I was playing with this idea that doesn't work. Actually, it's still valid, but I'm not utilizing it. So we had some alarms that were set for 14.88 inside that area, and we actually had some that were sitting just above that as well too. We had some TPs from the short. I did not short it. I had posted 3 days ago inside VIP that I was going to be looking at potential longs on where the TPs were at. So we have some limit orders that are sitting a little bit lower, down to 1410. Those limit orders are still there. Don't know if they're going to get triggered or not. But we do have some limits that we've already been activated here as far as like DCAing in. So Clo, River was, man, I think I missed River. Nope, I didn't. I didn't miss River. River looks like it's going to its full measure move on a flag breakout. That's the way I'm seeing that right now. Almost there. Yeah, I think River's gonna come down to like 2 point something. I mean, I like this current candle, so contingent on what that next candle does here on a 4 hour, which we got like another hour and some change left. That will really be the determination if I want to go ahead and set up a long for this. I think longing here in this area is more risky. It's more of catching a knife, and I could be very wrong. Maybe you get a phenomenal entry here in this area, tapping into weekly lows. But I'm a little bit more apprehensive. I'd want to wait for the confirmation, just because of this setup that I'm viewing it. You know, if we do have a flag breakout, at least a pennant breakout, you know, the measured move puts us around like 2.6. So I'd want to see, if I'm going to be trading River, you'd want to see a strong move up. You want to see some form of an engulfing, and then maybe like a retest here inside of this area. So it's going to be two pieces, right? First piece is going to be an engulfing, some type of bullish candle to show that, okay, we've reached bottoms. That candle may create a fair value gap. We want to see that fair value gap gets filled and holds that balance. That would be the opportunity for me to say, okay, well, let's look into some longs on river. But right now, not really touching river. Beat's great if you can catch it on the way down. The thing with beat, you know, that I've been reviewing is like, you look how long it goes into these dormant stages. You know, we're talking from early in the year, January, all the way through May of this year. You know, roughly 4 months and some change. And so now we're getting back into that same similarity where it just starts moving sideways. So if I was going to be trading beats, definitely not spot buys or anything like that, but I would definitely treat them as scalps. Right. All this is scalp weather. Until we get an actual true impulse. I mean, someone could argue and say, okay, this is our first impulse and then this is 2, but I believe that swept the low. Yeah, so I can't really constitute this as a 1. So really what I'm looking for is I'm looking for a 1 wherever that so happen may be as far as where it's going to land. And then I'd look for that retracement. That would be my buying opportunity wherever that retracement comes into play. I don't want to short it on a wave 1 because trying to figure out where wave 1 is going to go is incredibly difficult. So I think beat can actually have, you know, some decent moves. We just really need to wait for that wave 1. This could be the wave 1 inside this area, and then we get a 2, and then we'll get our 3. But we don't know. We don't know. So it is on the radar for us. Somebody asked me about BTC. I'll look at BTC for us. I'm going to go to a daily on BTC. You know, swept the low over here. We had one sweep over here. Then we had another sweep inside of this region right over here. So really you have 3 sweeps that are going on, at least 2 sweeps. No, you can still constitute it as a 3 right over here. Dismal inside of there. So if I'm going to be looking at BTC, I'm also looking at USDT. I kind of treat it the same like I treat ETH. You know, if USDT is reaching its peak areas from historical data wise, let's go back to a daily on this, right? These are the historical highs, and we're testing those historical highs at the moment. We were testing those. You know, breakout above, we go into price discovery. You really got to wait to see where that wants to stop. So for BTC, not really a 1. Don't really like that. I'm gonna go 1, 2. Not really, because this 2 went above higher here. So if anything, this would have been my 1, 2, and this is my 3, 4, and then this is my 5. So I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 5. I don't know if that's 5. I can see the ABC inside here though. So A, B, and then C. And that's what would drive down to these levels. And then you can find a couple subwaves that are in there. I mean, that's the most obvious thing right there. I believe I've drawn this out once before. This appears to be a what's called a bar. It's an acronym. It stands for bump and run reversal pattern. I'll expand upon that. You know, we actually had a couple frying pans. You can mark it out this way if you want. You can do it that way. But I'm just going to go a little bit wider here. And if I drew a channel, you'll see the lines a little bit more, but let's go like this. You know, you have your lead up phase going into it, you know, where you can see price action is basically holding this downtrend area right over here. And then all of a sudden you get a swoop like this. This becomes like what's called the frying pan, if you will. Now, it's not abnormal to have multiple frying pans, so we kind of got the same thing coming here. We tested the lead-in phase, which again, that's the dashed line, and then we got another swoop like that. Then we got a sweep of these previous lows right over here. So what I'm looking for is I'd want to see this test that's my first test. If I can get a true breakout wherever the heck that's going to be, you know, that puts us somewhere right around here. And you don't even need to know patterns to know this. You can just do something very basic, right? And this is something that I try to share with a lot of my students is, you know, as the market moves, as it moves in either direction, let's go to the upside first, right? We had this pretty incredible move in 2024, right? I think this is when we breached 100K. Everybody was losing their mind. But look what this created once we moved up, right? It created this space inside of here. So there's a void that's inside here. That void needs to get filled. Well, that's what filled it right over here. Then we moved up, right? So, and vice versa. As we moved down on this move, it started to create another void here in this area because price action was already here once before. So then we've created this other void. This is why you get this V-shaped formation right over here. So now we've cleared it on the side of this area, and now we're clearing it inside of this area. But guess what happens? Now we've created another void inside of here, inside of this section right over here. So now this move down clears all of this void all the way down to here. And we had a nice little pop up that came into this area, created a small little pocket. You can zoom in on it. You can see the little pockets inside here, right? So we start clearing it. Okay, well, saying how come it came in and retraced a little bit more? Because we still had, from this move up, we still had this area. Let me fix that. We still had all of this that needed to be filled. So all of this price action, what this did from this move down is starting to fill it. Again, moved up, created a void, and now we just filled it. Rinse and repeat. Little pump up, clearing that void. So we're continuously doing that. Now, with that being said, or at least that mapped out, now let's look at the opposite side, right? We filled a good portion of it. Yeah, we actually have some of this area over here that could be filled. So that's not off the table. To the upside, right? We have a decent pocket that sits right inside of here. We have a decent pocket that sits right inside here. We actually have a decent pocket that sits inside here as well too. So these areas at some point, and we're not talking about right here, we're not talking about this area, we're talking about from this area through here. Right? Same thing here. Oh, didn't mean to do that. Those are essentially going to be the areas that you're looking for. Obviously, this is down the road. Obviously, that's going to be during a bull run. It's going to be during a bull run. But I think the bigger question is like, okay, are we bottoming here? Are we done? You know, how much more of this do we have? I don't think we've actually hit capitulation, to be quite honest. So I think it's more, it feels more like accumulation because buyers are still obviously aggressively buying. But I think a sweep into this area right over here, and if we really want to go gangbusters into this area, because you can see there's a small little void that sits right inside here. But I mean, we're talking like bears are heavily aggressive. This is a heavy defense area over here. Heavy defense area. So it's a split view from my perspective, because there is more liquidity that sits to the upside. We're talking about targeting, you know, 2024 liquidity all the way down to 2023 liquidity. And from a time span perspective, you know, this is still this year. You know, this was just 2 months ago. You know, so targeting these areas right over here wouldn't be outside of the norm. And if we can obviously get to these areas right over here, then I'd look for the retracement and then start constituting, looking for a wave 2 from there. So in short, you know, my thesis would be bearish neutral. You know, I would definitely be looking for shorts here. I think the longs are more favorable inside of this area because we've collected a good amount of liquidity here to the downside. Void filled. Look where we're retesting. We're currently retesting 2024 support level that actually started that initial bull run into that 100K bracket. We can actually very well come into the side of this zone right over here. We're going to go from body to wick. Let's try that again. See. All right, so you still have demand that sits inside here. What's the top of that? 54,699. The bottom of that is 48.2. So while we are inside of a bear market, you know, the bigger picture from a daily perspective, you know, higher time frame, this is all still considered bullish retest. All this is considered bullish retest. You know, it's breaking this area. That's when we start getting into a real problem. It's breaking those zones that we start getting into a real issue. Let's look at see if there's any patterns that I can find on this. I'm sure I can, but I want to run an automated first and then I'll do it by hand. I don't want bearish. I'm like losing my brain here this morning. Yeah, it's nothing that's printing from an automatic perspective, so I'll just go by hand. Yeah, you could do that. Nice Navarro setup like that. And it's interesting, right? Because, you know, for anybody that's, you know, been following me, listening, or, you know, working with me for some time, you guys have an idea as far as how I like to handle my harmonics and really what I'm looking for. And it's always going to be wave B. Wave B is always going to be a breaking point. And so I would look at going from wick. Actually, there's two levels really. I need to fix that. Let's go inside of here and inside this fair value gap, right inside here. Let's open that up. I'd want to see what the reaction looks like inside of that. So even though I have a wave B, you know, let's say price action comes to this level, like I'm not shorting this area. I'd want to see what price action does inside of this zone. Furthermore, if we get a sweep into this, because this is untested, and this has been untested since January. All right, so like if I'm going to be open to any type of shorts, that's really what I'd be looking for. So if I'm bearish, you know, ideally you'd want to see something like that and then come right back down. You know, everybody that's looking at this looks at this as a breakout. You get a false breakout with a massive squeeze and you come right back down. And then maybe you get a retest of this area and possibly even come down lower, maybe, depending on if everybody's panic selling. That's what we're looking for. What's up, boy? How you doing, brother? You're shorting here on... Okay, good luck. For me, the risk to reward doesn't... It doesn't make any sense for me personally, right? Because I have buy side liquidity that sits right over here inside this area, and then I have a nice decent gap that sits inside this zone. So we have to remember, what is price action attracted towards? Its price action is attracted towards liquidity. And you don't get me wrong, I could be very well wrong, because we have sell side liquidity that sits right over here, that sits right around like 52. But that to me, that's a little bit more risky, in my opinion. So I wouldn't be taking the shorts, and let's say price does come down this area, then I'd be looking at longs. Price comes to this level right over here, I'd wait, because it makes a little bit more sense to come in, fill in this gap. You know, just like we were talking about a little while ago, you still have this void that sits inside here, inside this area. So can there be a balance that's created here, and then we come back down? And if that's the case, if we do get something like that, then I would constitute this as a wave 1, and then I'd be looking for my wave 2 levels that literally go from here to here. Let's flip that over. I don't want 382, I don't want 5, maybe 618, but I'm going to take it off for right now. And then I'd go green, and then go green, and then let's open that up. Let's expand that to 2. Right, I'd want to see it hold that area, that 0.88 area. The reasoning behind that is because we can see this 60 area. Sure, we did sweep it, but if I can get a close right back above it here, we can see that there was a lot of intent that sat right inside this zone, 69.38 and some change. So 66.56 from a mathematical perspective, let's just make the assumption that it does go to the wave B area, and our fib zone is mapped out correctly. That's what I look for. Maybe it goes a little bit higher. Maybe it comes into these zones right over here that I was talking about earlier, like 85. You know, all of that would still be a wave 1, which would in thesis be considered a bearish retest. Then we have the move back down, then it becomes a bullish retest, and then we need to hold 88 levels and maybe even a little bit lower. You know, these wave 2s can go all the way to, you know, 98%, as long as they don't retrace 100% of the move. You know, 98% looks like that. So that's a short that I'd be more interested in looking at in taking versus shorting from here, from these areas. That's just me. This is going to be your main catalyst right now. If we're going to be looking at USDT, we can see them clearly, right? Sweep. This occurred back in earlier in the month, right? Around the 5th. So we got a sweep action that occurred here. And now we have another sweep action that occurred here. For all intents and purposes, we can see what the intent is right here at the 0.88 fib, right? So they're relatively holding this area, and all of this, as we've seen, have been long squeezes on ETH and BTC. Because this was a pretty pivotal area right here. It's trying to reclaim it as of right now. That's where our wave 3 was at. And I can actually move this out. Not really. I'll go with A, B, and C on that. I'm not going to touch that. I'll map that out here in a second. What did I want to look at? Oh, I wanted to look left a little bit further. Yeah, same thing over here. What was the intent? You had to push up then with a throwdown. Yeah, and we can see where that intent was. That's where they wanted the price to go, but then they just had a long squeeze, right? Because this was the intent. You could see the body, you can see the liquidity that sits here. It pushed above, you had to close above it, but then you had an immediate push down and then started rejecting. So that makes this area right over here the true intent. That's where they want price to go for USDT. And if we use that same thesis and we look at where we're at right now, let's see where that is. You know, very similar happened earlier this year, in February this year. Broke above it, then you can see that we're kind of skating along it, ranging alongside of it. Push up above it, a retest of it. Now we can see that the intent levels are starting to adjust. It doesn't mean that we go higher on USDT, and it doesn't necessarily mean that we go lower. It just means that we have a new shelf that we're looking at that USDT is starting to develop. So this was the 2022 shelf that it was creating, and then obviously it had the downslide after that. Now it's starting to create a new shelf, which is relatively going to be this purple line inside of this area. And you could even go and give yourself a little range for that. You can go from body to body and look at it from that perspective. This is the new shelf that it's trying to create. So what does that mean for me? That means, you know, as USDT starts to enter inside these zones and it starts to give me wicks that start popping above, I want to immediately look at USDT and BTC and look at ETH and see where those wicks are going to. Fun fact, something that I've been working on, right? We can see that USDT went higher, but ETH did not go lower. It did not sweep below. So in my assessment, and it's something that I'm still journaling on my side, it's just something to pay attention to. I'm looking at it as deviation. There's potential that we have deviation in that. Which is good, right? Because that's really what you want to see for ETH or BTC. Once you start to see that deviation, this 30-minute right now is important. Like this little setup right over here. You can use harmonics on low time frames and high time frames. The same thing with Elliott waves. You know, if you're looking at higher time frames, harmonics, those patterns take a little bit longer to develop. You know, because you're looking at from a reversal. Remember, a harmonic is going to be a reversal pattern. So those are going to be predominantly for swings, saying, okay, I've entered into a PRZ. I'm in a higher time frame, daily, weekly, 2-day, 3-day, monthly, whatever. Those take a while. You know, the higher time frame harmonics that can be a play that's going to be created for an entire cycle. So it could be a setup that's good for like 2-3 years, or 2 years, maybe 3. Same thing with the Elliott wave. You know, you're looking at higher data, so you're really looking at swings. Now when you start getting into lower time frames, let's say like a 1 hour, a 30 minute, a 15 minute, something like that, when you're looking at your Elliott waves, those smaller waves are going to be inside of the higher time frame. So this is where it constitutes as sub waves. So you can see a 5 impulse wave that's inside there to the upside or to the downside. But that's just really going to be contingent on your style of trading, right? Like if you're on a 1 hour, 30 minute or anything like that, like you're not swinging. You're only looking at the 30 minute and constitute it as a swing because you have a higher time frame idea, and the low time frame is starting to give you your analysis. Kind of like what I have circled right over here. I have a high time frame set up from a wave count. And let me back up. I'd say high time frame, but it's more like a mid time frame. It's a 4 hour to 377. So I do have, for argument's sake, a high time frame idea set up, a bullish pattern and a bullish wave count, subjective wave count, because we haven't received confirmation just as of yet. But now if I'm floating down here to a 30 minute, I'm looking at this 30 minute as starting to develop some confirmations for us. So what I have circled right now, if you guys, without using AI, don't cheat, I'm going to do a $100 giveaway. So the first person that posts inside this chat, screenshot your response, post it inside of the server. You can do it in a market war room or whatever. Just tag me. If you can tell me what this setup is, what I have circled. Now, in order to receive it, to receive the giveaway, you have to be following the channel. Obviously, you have to be inside of the server in order to post your results. But I'm going to do a $100 giveaway for the first person that can actually get this right. Don't cheat. Be honest. If you don't know it, it's okay. It's okay. You'll learn something, right? You'll be able to take something away more valuable than an actual giveaway. So it's okay if you don't know it, but I'm asking that you don't cheat. Because I will be testing the responses. There's 2 things that are going on inside of that circled area that I have circled. There's 2 things that are going on. The website's already been updated this morning. So what I'm looking at, I've already started building. I mean, you're actually inside VIP, so you have an idea as far as what I've been mapping. Weird. But the site has been updated for you guys. Everything is there. But for good measure. Conditional reclaim long. Conditional. If all the conditions align and they meet, and there's a reclaim of 1571 after reclaim and retest. You can't just go above 1571 and be like, I'm gonna long here. You want to wait for the reclaim and then retest. So you need price action to climb above where it is currently right now, which it's fighting, which is the Asia session high, which it's currently rejecting inside that area. So you really need to see a reclaim of this area wherever it moves to, and then reclaiming of that. If it reclaims it, then it opens the door for a long, especially if you didn't catch it somewhere down here or catch it somewhere down over here. There's a full-blown map that's here for you as well too. Gotta do a little bit of research, brother. It's all there for you. It's all there. I can hold that area, if I can hold 1571 on a retest, then I'll add to my position. Okay, so this will be twofold. You'll learn and you'll get paid. Maybe some of you guys already know the answer. Well, you'll be rewarded for your intellect. And if you don't know, that's okay. You'll learn something today. I have a sessions indicator that's right over here that kind of maps out areas that are untapped. So we have this zone right over here that's untapped, just as an FYI. This is about to be tapped right now, which is yesterday's PM session. That's why you see a green dot starting to print right above it. And then once that area is swept, it starts to fade out. You guys probably can't see it on your end, but these lines are faded out. They're previous sessions, because if they get swept in either direction, they start to fade out. So what I'm showing you is the New York PM session yesterday is untapped territory, which we're basically kissing it right now. And then we have a larger one that sits right over here at 1636. That's untapped. So these are like, when you're looking at sessions, you know, I get asked this question often, which is fine. However, I would like for you guys to have the information, you know, when you're trading. Let's say you're coming off of a break and you haven't traded in a while, you haven't looked at charts, whatever the case may be. You can literally trade almost any session. As long as you know how to work a 15-minute range session, you'll be fine. The question then becomes, okay, well, I got into an entry, like, what are my targets? What should I be targeting? And so the responsible answer is you want to target previous session highs and lows, depending on your direction of position. So to the downside, yeah, we have Asia low, 1510 inside that area. But we have New York PM session high, New York AM session high, London session high, previous New York session high, previous London session low. Mentira. This is previous, not previous. This is a wave B. So can't sweep it. Those are invitations for you to take some TPs. That's what they're invitations for. Seeing how ETH is, it's probably going to come back down and test that. This is yet to be tested, and there's very, very thin liquidity right here with a nice gap inside here. Quick second. We did have a setup that printed. Well, hold on. Let me back up. It didn't print. It tapped into some of the areas that we were marking. Where did it go? I think it's. Yeah, it was Rave. Yeah, I had Rave. The scanner picked this one up as with a short, but I was like, I'm not shorting that. So I was looking at the potential long, which it triggered right over here inside this zone. And so I think we're at basically all-time lows. Yeah. Yeah, we're basically there. 2031 was an all-time low. And we think we went to 2058. I didn't get into it. I'm just pointing out. One, the scanner picked this one up for us, and there could be an opportunity that's there. I'm good with my current positions and scenarios right now, so that I'm just gonna hold on to those. How did Zora perform? Let's go back to Zora. Zora came down, pushed up higher, and now it's still ranging over here. Okay. I got out of Zora in profits. Oh, excuse me. But I never re-entered. It served its purpose. You know, and STG is kind of in similar territory. Right, it has room. It can come down lower. It's really just filling in this gap. Remember what I was talking about before is like once we start seeing these gaps, like we need to start filling. And so we had this huge gap that was sitting here, but majority of it has already been filled. So it's just a matter of if it actually wants to push into a 1 and then it gives us a 2, or if it continues down to the downside, filling in the remainder of this area right over here. For me, that's an invitation. See, now on a 30-minute, I'm rejecting this area right over here, and I'm running hot. So for me, it's an invitation to start taking some profits. Just took a little bit off the top. Nothing crazy. I'm going to do the same thing for STG. At 1646, where's the other one? 1670 inside that area. There's a nice little gap that sits inside there. I'll take that. Take that if we can get there. If it comes back down lower again, then I'll look for a reload. We're roughly like 600 away from our target goal for the week. If I can get the full extension on this, then I should be able to hit my target for the week. Nobody knows it. That's interesting. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm. Huh. That would mean the next 4 hour, 19 minutes. Yeah, I should get that retest then. That'll look good. I want an example. What's going to be a good example? I think TradingView has that option, that feature. I think it's Ghost Feed. Why can't I see that? Okay. Okay. Where's they're 16, 7. Yeah, I like that better. Oh, that would be juicy. How do I get... Yeah, maybe. Okay, well, maybe. Is that even possible? Yeah, so that puts me to 618. 76. I'm gonna say 618. Let's just go 618 for right now. Okay, and then if this were to be a 3, I mean a 3 is C. Lost my brain there for a second. So 0.382. Okay. It's a larger one. Okay, that's fine. And then go. There's that sideways movement that I was talking about until we get to July. And that's a Saturday. How much time is this? Did this just start? Oh no, it's 10 minutes left. 10 minutes left. And there's a wave C, and that's the weekly high. What is this right over here? I'm gonna move you down to here. Actually, I don't need that because I already have an alarm there. I'm gonna leave you here. A slight, not a necessarily adjustment, but something that when I was posting this setup inside of the VIP, I did not include the 1.618. The math just made more sense going to a 3. I mean to a 2.618. But I'm adding it on here now because it's something that should be observed. So if I get a 3 to those levels, then I'll remeasure where 4 is going to go and where 5 is going to go. 5 will most likely go to where wave 3 is currently positioned. And that could very well be like, you know, something like a high for July. Because if we look at, remember, I'm going to singe your eyes now because now I'm going to go to a white screen. Yeah, it's right over here. Well, a couple things. One, this is viewed from a weekly. I'm going to throw on a TD9 real quick. You see right over here. That section has yet to be cleared. Weekly's printing a 7 right now, so going into next week being a funky week altogether, you know, let's go 4 back 1. Well, that's not going to happen this week, so let's go into next week. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not a very difficult 1, 2, 3. That's difficult to try to clear, so that's not even feasible. So again, the sideways range that I was showing you on a 4-hour makes sense, at least going into next week, because in order to change this setup phase, we would need to close above that level on the weekly, which is 1690, which is a London high as well too. So 1690 is going to be a pretty important area. There's liquidity that sits there, setup phase from a TD9 sequential area. That makes sense. So I'm showing you the downside from a sequential count first. The downside, we're on a 7 tomorrow. Next week will be inside of an 8. We very well may get an 8 that pushes down slightly lower, and then it decides to move up. That could always happen. However, we are reaching historical oversold areas, and I'm looking at the cipher wave from that perspective. So anytime we get to this black line right over here, -60, that's going to be an oversold area for an RSI. And you can see every time we kind of tap into that zone, we get small little bounces, just contingent on how deep that was. This one was the deepest right over here, inside this zone, back on the 22nd of 22nd, the 27th of June of 2022. Holy cow, tomorrow's the 27th. That's interesting. I think that's just coincidental, but either way, right? This kind of marked our bear market low for 2022, 21, 22 inside this area. And then obviously that led us all the way to these areas. Same thing right over here when we got into 2025, a little mini bear market in 2025. You know, we got into these oversold areas, nice green dot printed inside this area, and that led us to an all-time high. We did get one that printed right over here, which I do like it, even though that we've come back down. We printed a red dot right here inside this area. That says two things. That says shakeout, and that also says compression, right? So they're going to start shaking out weaker hands, if you will. But now let's look at the upside, right? Because if we're reaching this oversold territory, what do we have here from a sequential count perspective that we typically like to utilize? Let's zoom in on that so you can see it a little bit more effectively, at least how I'm viewing it. So right over here, we have an open of 2371 and a high of 2374.24, roughly about a $3 differential as far as liquidity goes. So very, very thin liquidity that sits inside that zone. Coupled with that, now when we start focusing on the sequential count, we have a 9 failure because we have our 6 that's higher than our 9, and I believe the 7 is also high 24.26. Yeah, and so the 6 and the 7 are both higher than the 8 and the 9. So we have a 9 failure that sits inside this area. So when I go back over to this 4-hour setup, that's why I was targeting these areas here for either 3 or 5. It's unconfirmed in that area, but that's why I'm targeting those areas for a wave. One other thing I want to add to that sequential count was on the lead up phase, we can see that we're printing a 1 right over here. All right, we're printing a 1. Let's see, do I have any past data that I can share with you? No, I don't, but that's okay. Typically we'll see about 13 of those, just very similar to like what we're seeing, you know, the black numbers on the bottom, right? These are the lead up phases. It's expressing, saying that the trend is not fully done until you hit 13 with an 8 and a 9 in combination. And so if we go back over to this just printed a 1. So from a lead up phase perspective, even though that we've swept some lows from earlier in the year, like the January lows, we swept those. It doesn't mean that we can't see any upside. That's really what I'm pointing towards. It doesn't mean that we can't see any upside. So we have a 1 here. We're basically looking for 13 candles that are going to print higher than the subsequent 2. So once that starts occurring, once we start seeing moves going up, then you'll start seeing the lead up phase start printing 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, and so forth and so on. So it's just another reason. It's a longer way of explaining and saying, okay, well, we have, from a candle analysis perspective, we have data that confirms that we have a 9 failure and a reason to go back to these levels and retest those levels and test those areas. You add in some confluence to that, you have some harmonic patterns, which are essentially reversal patterns. You have potential wave 2s that are printing from that previous drop that we had down to 1503. Then we had a nice little impulse, and then we have a retracement back down. It's a sharp and steep retracement, which points towards a wave 2. And you know, now that I'm zoomed out, I mean, kind of going back to what I was sharing with you guys earlier in the stream. All right, look at this huge gap. Right, price is going to want to fill this. I'm just going to be exaggerating here. Shoot, if I can clear that, and that opens up the door for right over here. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just pointing out where the gaps are at. See, there's a gap all inside here. And then look at all this. So if I can get price action to come into this area, I'll fill all this crap. That would be phenomenal, to be honest with you. We're so far out of the woods though, guys. We got a long haul to go. Very long haul to go. Man, that's noisy. Sheesh. Don't need that anymore. Oh, it's cool. Look, so we swept yesterday highs. Excuse me, PM session highs. We swept those. That's why you see the purple dot that's printing in that area. And then the line that was here was faded away. So now we have some areas that were untapped that are now being tapped. I took a little bit of profits off of my ETH long inside that area just to cover in the event that we do come back down, then it wasn't time wasted. But this is a major area. Again, same thing before, like huge gap inside of here. Smaller gap right over here. But there's more attraction to this area right over here. It's my stick figure. Our PM session just began. So now we're going to see PM session. What was the range for New York AM today? $46 spread. Damn, PM sessions open up with aggression. Okay. And I think there's a spread here. I think this spread is like $103. My memory serves me correct. $105. Woo! Nice move. Sexy. Alright, so now we're filling in some of this gap here. What's up, boy? Welcome back. This was the dead giveaway. This was the dead giveaway. I don't think anybody's gonna get it. I don't think anybody knows what that is, so I'll dive into explaining this. Trying to find my tools. This candle right here, it's a pin bar. Small body, long wick. Usually you have a smaller wick here on the top, but that's okay. It still constitutes and falls under a pin bar. Now, pin bar, what that means for you, whether it's to the upside or to the downside, is that sellers are trying to push price down, but you can see that it got absorbed. There's absorption here. There's absorption here. Now, what followed right after that was, this is what's important here when reading this. Let me take something off real quick. We had something very similar, but we didn't have a pin bar. This was on the stomach candle, which it's not as strong as the pin bar. It's still a good candle. But the pin bar is basically showing more absorption here in this area because you can tell there was a bigger fight inside this area. There was more buyers that were stepping in inside of this area, and then everybody just started aping in, and that's why you got that move up like that. So that's why you got what looked like a bullish engulfing there, which is not wrong, right? Because it still came down in this area, which you'd be fine if you longed that zone. But here's why this is a little bit stronger, is because this engulfing opened up literally right on the close for that on the stomach pattern. And we can see that the open was 1531.70 and the low was 15.28.19. So very thin liquidity here inside of this area. Now this opened up very similar after already being absorbed inside this area. And let's go ahead and look at data. Open 1533.18, low 1528.12. Fair. It's thin liquidity inside that area. And some people might be thinking, well, shouldn't we come back down to that area and retest it? Yes, we could. But here's the issue, is that majority of the liquidity from here to here has already been picked up. It's already been picked up. So this candle, this pin bar right here, essentially is showing you the absorption. They try to push the price down and it got absorbed. They pushed the price down and it got absorbed. So when you have a pin bar coupled with a bullish engulfing, bullish engulfings represent 71% of the time a reversal. Hang on for a second. Now it looks like we're getting a shooting star here. I believe that has a tall wick. Let me take something off real quick. Yeah, see, that's, now we're getting something on the other side. Very similar to this pin bar, but now you're getting this. They're trying to push price down, but sellers are absorbing this area with thin liquidity that sits right over here. You have a small little doji that sits inside this zone. Right over here. Actually, let's make sure that we're accurate on that. It's not a Takuri line. Open 1579. Yes, so this would be a doji because they're within pennies of one another. So you have an indecision that's going on right here, and you have what looks to be a shooting star that's developing. Shooting stars are like 55% of the time they have reversal rates. You really need to wait for the confirmation. So you'd be waiting for a opening candle, you know, with a body that looks like that to the downside, if it's going to reverse and come back down to these areas. But going back to my explanation is that you have a bullish engulfing, which whether it's a bullish engulfing or a bearish engulfing, 71% of the time it's a reversal. So you're saying what if this is a shooting star and then you get a bearish engulfing that prints here in this area? Does that mean that we're going to go lower? No, not necessarily. Reason being for that is because where your engulfings are placed matters, right? So if you have a bearish engulfing, you know, when you're already on a down streak, when you're already on a downslide as is right now, right? We can see what the trend looks like. I don't know why I just put that tool on there, but that's not what I meant to use. Let's try that again. Okay, you're already on a downslide right now, and let's say you do get a bearish engulfing. The probabilities of that giving you a reversal rate start to thin out because the trend hasn't been broken. So what are you reversing? You're reversing this small little pump? No, that's not where it works. It has a lower probability. The bullish engulfing has a higher probability because we're already on a downslide, as I've already pointed out once before, as we're inside of these areas. And now you have a bullish engulfing that's printing here when you're already on a downside. So bullish engulfings represent reversal. They don't represent continuation. And same thing for bearish engulfings. They don't represent continuation. They represent reversal. So I have a shooting star that's printing here. It's just an invitation to take some profits, to be quite honest with you guys. It's just an invitation to take some profits. Here you go for reference. I'll post this inside the server so you guys have later. All right, it's inside the playback, so if you guys ever come across it, it's inside there for you. Remember what we were talking about on the setup, right? We were looking at saying, okay, well, we really want to see 1571, which is right over here. It's a little bit lower. Right here. Sorry. Right? Previous Asia high. So we've swept London high, we've swept Asia high, we've swept PM session high from yesterday. This is untapped territory. Excuse me, inside this area. So very bullish would be we move down, hold this area, then we move up. We break down further, then it becomes, where's my 15-minute sessions? Did I delete them by accident? I probably did. Okay, I'll fix that. All right, so those are fixed. So going back over to a 30, this is very bullish. If we hold that area, then my targets come to fruition from a long perspective. The other scenario is saying is because in the event that we are running hot and we need to come down and just have a slight cool down, this has yet to be tested. That's New York Open high. Still falls under bullish retest. Gets inside this range right here. This is where it becomes risky as far as entering, but still constitute as bullish retest. Just reiterating, it's when we break underneath here, start rejecting here, that's what opens the door for us to go in lower. All right. Yeah, it's thin liquidity right here too. You see, if I lose this level, it gets real dicey. Real dicey. For anybody that's here inside of Citadel Pro, if you need a sessions indicator, we'll be extending it to Citadel Pro /founder members. So just DM me or put it inside of the VIP section if this is something that you want to use inside of your tool set. There's no expiration, there's no cost for it. It's just going to be, as I've promised before, for everybody that's using the ref links. The first 50 people that use the ref link get access, one, to the liquidity suite, which is right over here. It's this indicator right over here. And add-ons that we start doing, as I mentioned, you guys will have access to these. You just let me know if it's something that you want to utilize, and then I'll add you to the list. It mainly just focuses on the 30-minute down. You can you can increase it to look at sessions on higher time frames. You can. It gets a little noisy for me, in my opinion, especially if you're zoomed out. So if I'm looking for entries and I'm looking for targets, this is where the sessions really come into play for me. I'm saying, okay, what areas are we taking? So like my TPs that I've taken thus so far, they've worked. They warranted because I've taken previous session highs. Right, this is we reclaimed 1571. What you see right now on a 30-minute is the retest. If you guys are enjoying the stream, you guys are learning something today, you guys are taking some positions, you guys are taking some profits, do me a solid, smash the like button. It goes a long way helping the channel, helps me out. It's encouraging to continue to do these streams for you guys on a weekly basis. And it don't cost you a thing. So we either got some serious volatility about to step in, or we got a serious move developing on the bullish run. Lagging indicator, but we have ADX that's now starting to curve up with bullish dominance that's sitting ahead. Mind you, it's a 30-minute, so I don't really put too much weight on the lower time frames. I really like using DMI on a 4-hour and above. As a matter of fact, let's look at a 4-hour real quick. Yeah, so this entire move is just simply just a representation of loss of strength. They're just losing strength. They still have dominance on a 4-hour. So this is what I was saying earlier, like we're far from out of the woods yet. Because on a 4-hour, right, like very similar, like it can start losing strength like it did here, and then you got a little pump, so it came down and then it moved up. But then ADX decided to create a valley right over here, which warranted the additional move down like that. Now we have another peak. We want to see if is it going to have another valley, or is it going to cascade and come in beneath the baseline. That's how you would read your DMI, at least on a 4-hour. 4-hour, we're on oversold areas. Here's that 60 benchmark, as I was mentioning before, on a 4-hour. I really like using the cipher on higher time frames like daily and weekly, things like that. Just a little bit of a better read, but you can still utilize it here on any time frame, really, to be quite honest with you. But I'm just showing you how I would read it. So we literally bounced off of 1571. Reclaim, retest. Right, remember what I was explaining to you guys earlier. Conditional. All right, am I meeting my conditions thus so far? Okay, I've reclaimed the 1571 area on a 4-hour. Looks good. And now I'm in the middle of a retest. This candle just started 30 minutes ago. I mean, I got another 3 hours that's left in it. So you're inside of a confirmation candle. Let's see what's come up on the scanner. Cyber? Oh, it must have refreshed. Okay. Yeah, you scored a 60. JTO. I know Scissors was trading that one. I hope he's still in his. Yeah, so there's quite a few different setups as an FYI on the site for you guys. You just come over to the scanner section and you'll see a couple that are there. Sorry, if you hit view scan alerts, that's going to take you right into Discord, take you straight to the channel. So if you're already part of VIP and you have that role, then you have access to it. If you're not in our server, you would like access to it, that's how you gain access. But it's going to give you guys at least 3 that are here. Most alts are longs right now. Somebody was asking about Elliott waves. I don't think I have Elliott waves that are on here. I have patterns that are on here for you guys. But if you go into the trading strategies, you'll find some Elliott wave information that's in there. The ETH needs to reclaim that little shelf that's right there. Oh, nice. TapeSurf has a new update. That's nice. They have footprints that are on there. That's what's up. Yeah, I like the volume though. Yeah, you got a lot of shorts that are trying to develop there. Let's see if we can actually football them out. Let's go to a daily here. Not what you want to see for the day. So psychological level of 1600. The name of the indicator is BCH. The name of the indicator is Citadel Sessions Pro. Right there. You said BCH, boy. I'll look at it right now. Let's use STG for right now. I'm closed and just not performing. You said BCH. You're loading along on that? Yeah, that thing looks like it's ready to pop. ADX is at approaching historical lows. And when I say historical lows, I don't mean like, you know, this is the first time it's ever been there. What I'm saying from a historical low perspective, when you're looking at DMI, this brush drives me crazy sometimes. It's these levels right over here. $5.8 down to 3.5. It's almost like an RSI, like, you know, when you have your oversold and overbought scenarios. You know, when we start getting inside of this area, depending on where the trend is at, it's either oversold or heavily overbought. And once it gets to this area, you can see that it makes these aggressive moves, the ADX. So whatever side is more dominant is literally going to get the pump. So this is almost like cut and paste identical. ADX peaked, ADX peaked, downslide, downslide, ADX crossed over baseline and DI negative, ADX crossed over baseline and DI negative, And this went into some volatility right over here. I call this the DMI Tango, where they just start intertwining. So that's heavy volatility. You got to be ready for that. There was a spike here. This is most likely a flush. And then right back down. Yeah, so this is probably going to move sideways for a little bit. Be like entwined like that. I look for that last little dip. But when this thing pops and this DI positive is up like that, like the party is just getting started, basically, is what you're saying from a long perspective. Party's just getting started. Yeah, I'll look for some longs on that. That's gonna be a risky one. So I'm on a 4 hour. I may have just missed the boat on that, to be honest with you. I wasn't even paying attention to it, but it's on my charts now. Let's zoom out for a second. Alright, I'm gonna go to daily. Oh nice, you got good data. Okay, I can work with that. Damn, that's nice. Okay. This thing's almost textbook technical. It fills in its gaps right away. I can't help it, but there's like a pattern that's just like screaming at me right now. Yeah, the thing is, I think I'm inside of a PRZ right now. Oh man. Damn, I'm so tempted to enter that. I'm so tempted to enter that. Let me just set an alarm here. Let me see if I can get back here. See if I can get in there. But yeah, I would 100% be targeting wave B. And then this move up will create a nice gap. I'd constitute all that as wave 1, and then you'll get a wave 2. So let's say I miss it. Let's say this thing just starts pumping up to here. Then I'll wait for this. But if I can get down here sooner before I pump into a 1, then I will... Did I go higher here? I did go higher there. This is almost like BTC. Oh no. Oh yeah, never mind. Yeah, I definitely won't be long on that again. So I need, if I'm gonna get in on this party, I need a long a wave 4. Along this wave 4, which is a pain in the butt. And this was flat, so I think this will go sharp. Yeah, and that's what's tricky about that right there. Because I don't even have to go that high. I don't have to. I'm just using the, oh god, I'm using the harmonic for confluence. Because then it kind of gets me to this wave 1. So there's more reasoning for us to come back to this area, in my opinion. I'm doing that wrong. There we go. No, that's correct. I had that wrong. It should have been here. Two 618s? No. But I can go slightly above it. Let me guess, that's the same length that I had wave 1, right? Yeah, that might be flat. How do I get a wave C from there? Dude, that was huge. This is the fun part about harmonics, they're subjective. Hmm. If I enter now and I get a pump, I'll be round tripped. And then I'll pump again. I mean, this is a little bit too extended. I mean, it's a total pattern. That's what it is. Total patterns have a deeper D leg. And this is just me predicting. Oh my gosh, that's gonna be insane. And that makes total sense. All right, so is it worth the long here and now? No, because I like the way that it's set up for the future short. I'll still observe this, but I like this better than 0.382. Because patterns follow patterns. So this whole leg, you got a nasty shark. I'll save this and then I'll post this in the server just so we have for reference. I'll color coordinate this white so we know this is related to the ABC. And we'll color coordinate this one yellow because it's connected to that. And we'll color coordinate this one yellow as well because it's connected to that. What is this called? BCH? No, actually, you know what? I'm gonna put this inside the stream playback. Everybody can see it. Yeah, so I have alarm here at 193, right on that sell side liquidity area, down to the weekly low. I'll send an alert on it. So if I start if I start tagging like 193, which I'm like 7 pips away from it, I'll start observing it and see if I can get into a long on that. It'll probably be like a little scalp if I get a push up. I'll take profits here, wait till I come back down to this area again, re-long, get into this zone, and then start observing these levels before I trigger a short. That's what all I would do. That's what all I would do. Oh, you're about to lose that line, aren't you, buddy? Yeah, come on down, Chloe. I have no problem with you coming down. Nine times out of 10, I'm probably going to answer your question. So I thought I already answered it when I'm looking at a BCH. All right, so 1571 held. Let's go look at 30 real quick. See, the 1 hour doesn't look too bad. 30 is a little bit concerning just from a heat perspective. But see, I can run cool and then get a little bit warm, like something like this. I'm not there just yet. Like I was saying earlier, guys, like we're most likely just gonna be moving sideways until we get here. This is a compression zone. You see the 2 and the 1 that's down here. These are compression zones. We really start expanding on the zones once we get into 3. And the real moves won't occur until we get from here inside these zones from 3 to 5. So in here, compression. That's why these candles are so tight. Very tight. Tight with no pullback, right? Like just straight nosedive, but very tight. Once you start getting into these zones like 3 through 5, you start seeing larger candles, bigger expansion, a little bit more separation in between instead of so tight like this. And the same thing here. You start seeing bigger ones. And that can go in either direction, right? Like it can be, it can go this way and it can go this way, right? But my point being is when you're utilizing fib zones, 1 and 2 are really tight compression. So really utilized for building. And then once you get into 5, 3 through 5, you know, these are like TP areas, TP zones. We can push all the way into an 8 over here and then bleed over. I actually think I have that, but I don't believe I have a date that transposes on that. You know, it won't give me that. Maybe if I go to a 4 hour. Does the 8 give me a date? It puts me in August, end of the month, August. Wait, did he short? Hold on. Oh. I think this weekend's trades are going to be kind of like meh, because like I was saying earlier, like we're getting towards the end of the month, right? And then we have July. July could always bring us right back down and even surpass the low of 1503. So what I'm getting at is you don't need a FOMO. You don't need a FOMO. Like you have plenty of time for the next move to start developing going into the month of July. You have plenty of time. You know, if you're positioned already, great. Then consider, you know, scaling out, taking some profits. That's at least that's what I've done. But what I don't know. You do what you choose. Let's look at USDT because that's kind of going to give us a little bit of confidence here. Yeah, remember this box that we were just talking about not too long ago? Like, see, we're inside of that. Really, if you want to see ETH pump, you really want to just see it just lose that box altogether. Not reclaiming above it. You know, might get some wicks above there and then come back down, which is fine. But reclaiming that's like, eeh. It wants more, it's hungry for more. And it may not even go to my 10 that I was talking about over here. It could very well just come to one of these extension zones, which is still all-time high, right? So just under 1.272 is an all-time high, so 9.59 all-time high for USDT. And considering, you know what? I mean, yo, ETH gets dogged a lot, and I don't discredit the dogging of it, right? Because it's vastly underperforming. But let's look at it like USDT and ETH in comparison to the previous years that we had. You know, USDT went, ETH went from, it's a better chart over here. Right, ETH went from 4,800 to 880, all while USDT reached an all-time high. Okay, this cycle, what the hell was that? Oh, this cycle, relatively same area, 4,900, not too far off from previous. And let's say USDT does go to a new all-time high. I mean, ETH is relatively holding up pretty well in comparison to USDT, what it's done in the last cycles. That's a positive. That's a huge positive. That's how I look at that. That's a huge positive. Yeah, it's a good positive. Weekly, holding that trend line. We'll come back to that later. Probably by next week, I'll revisit that. What do we have for targets? Again, for this potential long setup, what are our targets? $1670, $1778, and $1848. We'll be lucky if we get $1670. We're very lucky. 1778 would 1778, I believe on a 4 hour I have a shaved head, if I remember correctly. Was it 1778 or was it a 1 or was it a 15 minute? My bad. Where are you? I think you're over here. No. Very thin liquidity. Where did I see you at earlier? Were you on a 30? You're 1805. You're not what I'm looking for. You're not what I'm looking for either. I know I saw you. As a matter of fact, we're just going to open this up like that. We're going to go to 1 hour. And we're going to look for it that way. I know I saw. There it is. Oh, damn. It was higher. It was 1840s. It was 1840s. Yeah, so TP3 is 1848. And we can see we have a shaved head on the hourly at 1841 and some change. So, you know, perfect world, perfect world. Like, let's say you have a great setup. Like, it would be reclaiming this area, fill all these fair value gaps, utilize them as fuel, get to a weekly high, and then maybe next week we open up and then clear this area and then right back down again. I'll take that. I would definitely look into that. I'm more interested in just taking profits here in this area versus opening up shorts inside this zone. I'm gonna go quick bite to eat. I'm starving. Hang on, guys. Soul? Okay. Oh, yeah, Soul is. I had targets at 61 because my alarms kept on going off and it was annoying the crap out of me, to be honest. I think I have it on a different chart. There's another Soul. Oh no, my bad. I'm thinking of Hype. My bad. I'm thinking of the wrong pair. Derp. I'm thinking of the wrong pair. I was thinking of Hype. Hype is the one that kept on going off. It was driving me wild. Yeah, Soul don't look bad. The only difference is that this swept that area, so from a wave 1 perspective, you know, in comparison to ETH held its own here in this area, so it held a wave 2 on a daily for Soul. I can't really get a read on that outside of this daily. Yeah, this is actually kind of small. You got a nice little bump and run that's appearing here. Bump. There's your pin, and then you'd want to see a bounce out of there. Oh, I did that backwards. Let me redo that. Yeah, which would make sense because we got to fill all this crap. But that's all I got as far as like a pattern or something that I would look at. Go 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. It's a scare part. It might be going into a 4. I do love that. Things just line up. It's awesome. Awesome. Oh man. Man, there's so many different ways you could look at that. Yeah, no. Oh shoot. This thing's gonna be massive. Damn near close to a bullish 5.0, but that's a Navarro. Yeah, I don't like it too much. I like to see the D wave a little bit further out, you know what I mean? Alright, so let me go back to what I was looking at then. And if that's 4, then 5 would be... think I did that wrong. Let's try that again, Saint. I don't even think that's going to compute. Oh, shoot. Yeah, no, that's not going to work. Okay. I mean, it's quite possible that was 3 and that was a very small 4. And then my 5 is already done. So let's look at it that way. I got that right. That's 2. Actually, let me put that back on. Damn, that's pretty close. Let's go to 138. That's pretty close. That's pretty close. So I'm obviously a little bit higher than that, so 141. Definitely not. There you are. So damn, you went flat? Yeah, that actually might work. This is a little sneaky bugger, but I see you. Okay. Okay, so let's make the assumption, you know, everything's starting to bottom out, everything's starting to align, everything will get a little bit of relief. So where do we go from here? So we got a bump and run here. What did we say that measured move was? Okay. Okay, that's one piece. 5, 1, 2, 3. Okay. That actually might work. So the reason why I'm targeting the 0.98 is because of this candle that led into that impulse. So I think longs are going to start favoring. I probably look at a very risky long entry on that breakout. I got a 0.88, but we've tapped out a couple areas, so I think sweeping that area. But it's this candle right here. Open 63.15, low 63.16. There's literally 1 penny, so very thin liquidity that sits in that area. So I'd probably try to target that. And so after I have my 5 impulse wave, which I'm making the assumption this is my 5th wave, what's going to follow that is going to be some form of an ABC pattern, which would ultimately look like sideways movement and or range, because you would go like this and then come back down, right? So it's kind of going to look like that. So this ABC, that's what would follow first. And then I will get my 1 from here. And then I'll get my 2. And then I'll get my 3. And then I'll get my 4. And then I'll get my 5. I don't know where these are going to go. I'm just showing you based on the screen real estate that I have right now. I'm also utilizing this bump and run reversal pattern that sits right over here. The measured move for that, I'm basically going from the pan to the lead up phase. Right, and then I'm looking at potential breakouts in this area, which put me right around this extension level for wave C inside that area. This wave C kind of makes sense because, you know, one, taking out the fair value gap that sits over here. There's a little bit of a shaved head that sits right over here. The open is 74.17, the high is 75.67. Not necessarily a shaved head, but very thin liquidity that sits over there. And then we have a little bit of a gap right inside here. The remainder of the gap sits right over here too. So fill and get right into that little nook right there. Let's fix some of these things real quick. And just so it's not confusing. This is to the upside. For kicks and giggles, let's just look at what a wave 3 potential would look like. And then I want to sprinkle in a pattern with that. I mean, SOL performs, bro, so I think I'm cutting it short and not giving it the justice, saying it just goes there. I mean, it'll definitely go there, but I think it'll probably squeeze, because this makes sense over here, because then that fills in the remainder of all this. Why aren't, thank you. Fills all the remainder of this. Then it allows for a little bit of a break. Then we'll go into a 4. And then obviously contingent on where 4 is at, we'll be able to figure out where 5 is going to go. Yeah, I'm going to go with 2.618. I mean, we'll come back to 1.618 when we get to those areas. As a matter of fact, here what we'll do is this. We won't leave it on the chart, but we'll set an alarm for that area. All right, there's an alarm there for that. I should probably label it, because I'm like, what the hell did I have an alarm there for? There. All right, then let's look at, can you actually get a pattern out of that saint? Not necessarily. That's assuming it creates like this little uptrend. What happens if I go this way? Well, that don't work. That doesn't work either. Well, I mean, it works, but the deeper you go, the higher you go. I mean, I like it. Yeah, come back and retest that, come right back down again, then decide to push back up again. Damn, you get even a bigger cycle. Actually, this would be at a intermediate. Yeah, you can go. Yeah, I'll go intermediate on that because what does that take me to? Yeah, I'll definitely go intermediate on that one. And damn, bro, you can even get a much larger one, constituting the whole thing. That's the subwave inside. Then you get your 2, and then your 3 would be something ridiculous. Let's just say, whatever, here. Then you get your 4, then you get your 5. Yeah, I'll mess with that. I'll post this inside of the server as well too. We'll come back to this. I'll play around with it. I already have the alarms that are set on there, and it's inside my watch list. It's inside my watch list. I'll actually move you up a little bit, just so you can get priority in the sense of what I'm looking at. All right, let me check one thing. Be right back. I'm still here. What do I have here? Let's go Clove over. I want to check on River. What did River do? Damn. Did I miss that? Oh no, it was this morning. I did miss it. I was at the stream, sorry. Okay. So this is right before the stream. Okay. Didn't take it. Didn't take it. I haven't touched this one yet. We were just moving sideways. I don't feel like I'm missing anything yet. Yet. Operative word, yet. Close, the only one I'm kinda worried about here. I think we're gonna come back to this 19 area. 19.686. Why? Oh. Hold up. $19,728, excuse me. Alright, so that was Soul. I want to say, I don't know if that's the bottom for Sol or not. The real test is going to be when we're going to be in this area for a long time. For a long time, for the remainder of the year. We're going to be revisiting this area often. So as long as we hold these levels, you know, 65 through 62, then yeah, that marked the low, which was 60.03. What? Oh, I'm like, what am I doing? That's not what I wanted. I wanted this. There you go. Yeah, Clo looks like it's gonna flush. It's just been running sideways for 2 days now. Now you got a shade bottom over here, so yeah, 1571 is gonna be tested again. That'll be ideal. Drop into this, fill some of this fair value gap over here, and hold it. Gotta hold it, and then we move up. This says stabilized. It's still curved down. Okay. What's 610 look like? They're not done yet. 144 is curved down. Let's go to 89. Do I have any time? Oh, I have a crossover on 89. That's what's up. All right. USDT, it's your turn. Yeah, that daily doesn't look good at all. That daily looks like it's got the strength, but it's lost its momentum. RSI is pointing its nose down too. I don't have any sell dots that are printing yet. Market pressure, so it's still bullish. USDT is still very much bullish. Do I get a different read on a 4 hour? Yeah, 4 hour doesn't look any better. Let's kind of mirror 89. Yeah, there are those similarities. Yeah, it's trying to find its wave 1 or wave A, wave B. Yeah. I have my alarm set for, I think I set my alarms. Yeah, I did. No, I didn't set my alarms for a long entry. I need to go back to that. I may have missed that. I'll just have to wait for it. I'll wait for that. I run into some exhaustion. Oh, maybe you can get me back down to here. Maybe a retest of this wave B. That'd be fantastic. These are weekly lows, so I just set an alarm for weekly lows. Alrighty. So that's where we're at. That's what I'm going to be finishing with. Kind of outlined all the different setups that we're going to be reviewing. You want to keep your eye on the site if you're not inside of our server. If you're inside of our server, then you want to take a peek at the scanner section. If you're not inside of the VIP section or Citadel Pro as far as founding members, then you'll have the site there. You'll see at least 3 different setups that are there that'll print. Inside the VIP scanner section, there's going to be a litany of them. Over 100 different setups are going to be scanned on a day-to-day basis. That doesn't mean take all 100, just the ones that pop up on your radar. Take a look at them, see if there's a setup there that you feel comfortable with taking, and then take the trade from there. I'll spend a little bit more time with you guys. If you guys have any other questions for me about setups, about some of the coins that we went over, feel free to ask. This will be the opportunity for you to ask. We'll resume again on Monday. Fresh links will go out on Sunday. And we'll pick up the same time again on Monday, 10:30 after New York Open. Pre-market analysis will be before New York cash markets open. So roughly between like 8 a.m., 8:30. You'll see the analysis that's there. So you'll be privy to what I'm looking at, what the setups are going to look like, and then go from there. Hoping you guys learned something from today as far as like the pin bar and the engulfing. I'm hoping that sticks out to you in the future. And just, the more you submerge yourself in reading charts and familiarizing yourself, excuse me, with patterns, things of that nature, they just kind of like jump out. So sometimes you guys may be watching, like, how does he see that stuff, or how does that come to his mind? It's just, I've been doing this for years, 20 years plus. So when I look at the charts, those are the things that stand out to me. And you don't have to be the exact same way. You don't have to follow my strategy. I'm not indicating that. I'm just saying repetition is the mother of all skill. To be an expert at anything, said it last stream, you got to do something at least 10,000 hours before you can consider yourself an expert. So you break that down to how many hours you have in the day when you're looking at charts, reviewing, journaling, taking entries, taking stop losses, taking TPs, all that stuff. 10,000 hours is It's going to equate to a couple years. I don't think anybody here is doing it 24/7. A lot of us are on the charts 24/7. But you know, you got to incorporate real life stuff, eating, taking a shower, rest, you know, all those things come into play. So point being is just, you know, patience is a position. It is, you know, and the more you study this stuff, the more it sticks out for you and you'll get a little bit more comfortable with it. Believe me, you're going to take some losses along the way. It's part of the game. It's part of the process. Nobody, I don't care what they say, nobody bats a 100%. They don't. They may bat over 80, they may bat over 90, which is great, but nobody bats over 100 or bats 100. There's always room for error. Yeah, charts always run in the background, for sure. Yeah, so when I shut down my system, I have my laptop, I pop it open, and I set my alarm. So when I hear my alarms, I'm like, what's going on? Although those alarms sometimes, boy, oh boy, they can definitely disturb some good sleep. You just got a bunch of them going off. You're like, what is going on? I appreciate you too, Sniper. Thank you, brother. And just a quick reminder, as I mentioned before, if you guys have interest in the sessions indicator and you're already part of the Citadel Pro section, just shoot me a DM. Chances are I already have your username, your TradingView username, but if I don't, I'll ask you for it again, and then I'll add you to it. It doesn't take that very long for me to do so. It's good for, you know, entries and TPs when you're just doing intraday trades. That's its main purpose. It's good for intraday trades. You can use it for scalps as well too. It reads from a 30-minute down to like a 1 minute, and above a 30-minute, it will read if you force the read. I've put a feature and setting in there where you can force the read above 30-minute, but you ideally want to look at a 30-minute and a low, and it has a look back of at least 3 days. That's what it defaults to. Excuse me, no, it defaults to 2 days. I adjusted to 3 days. So I'm looking at 30 minutes as far as time frames, and I'm looking at 3 days worth of sessions. So that puts you within the week as far as highs and lows that you could potentially sweep. And then if you have the weekly high and low indicator, you can see where the weekly high and low is mapped out on your chart on any time frame. And then you utilize that with the session, saying, okay, well, this is going to be my extreme area, sweeping a weekly high, creating a new high for the week, or sweeping the low, creating a new low for the week. What's going to be in between? Where's my liquidity sitting? What should I be sweeping? This is where the sessions come into play. Excuse me. I need some more tea. Ave is pumping hard. I haven't looked at Ave, but I did have a setup for Rave, and I remember that fired off. If I can find it. There you are. Yeah, Rave came right into that. I don't know, I might get into that. Maybe. So yeah, it's like running sideways, almost like how Beat was. But see, like Beat had a pump and then came down and da-da-da-da-da-da. I mean, it's 22 cents. The all-time high is $28. I mean, look how huge this fair value gap is. Bro, this thing tanked in 12 hours. Damn. That's insane. Peaked out around 28. And then in 4, 8, 12. Is that another one? 16 is go 20. Yeah. Say like 20 hours. Same day it pumped. The same day it literally retraced. Within 24 hours, it retraced an entire move. Damn, that's. Imagine if you caught that short. Talk about fast profits. I think a couple of crypto millionaires were made on that move. So I want to see if this thing actually has any life inside of it. I have the alarms for it, but we have such a huge space, a huge imbalance that it needs to clear. So this sideways movement is probably going to continue for a little bit longer. Yeah, we got a couple little bit of shaved heads here on a 4 hour. Yeah, the one that just developed on this current session. I want to see if we can get back into this. This is where I have my alarm set. 2161 inside that area. So if we can get back into that zone, then I'm going to look at some potential longs for this. And then ride it out. Ride it out. All right. Well, guys, that's my time. I appreciate you guys spending it here with me over the last 3 hours. I'm hoping that you were able to take something away from this stream, education-wise, position-wise, or just overall enjoying some time together here on a Friday. It is the weekend coming, so please be safe while you're out there with your trades. If you've taken any of these positions today, know that Fridays for me are scale outs, so I'll be looking to be scaling out of those positions, not looking into holding heavy positions going into the weekend. If there are any types of pumps or movements or dumps for that matter, I'll be posting them inside of the server so that you guys have an idea as far as what I'm looking at. Always feel free to ask me any questions or setups that you want me to look at inside of the server. Happy to take a peek. All that I ask is just provide me with a chart so we can align our thoughts together. Other than that, remain profitable throughout the course of the week going into the weekend. And if nobody's told you today, Jesus loves you. I love you. Thank you again so much. And I'll catch you guys next week. Peace.